Hey everybody, welcome to F1 or F Off, your audio pit stop for F1 news, interviews, and race reviews. I'm your host Gabe, and today is part 2 of the Gabe ASMR F1 or F Off. Immerse yourself. And today, I have decided to be joined by Synthwave Boy. Last episode I did that was ASMR, I had Lo-Fi Girl, and I think I may have mentioned, and you can definitely check this out. It's kind of cool. Synthwave Boy is made by Lo-Fi Girl. So one thing that they did I think is really interesting is at night, you look across the way outside Lo-Fi Girl's window, you see this little blue window. That is Synthwave Boy, because if you go to his window and you look out across the way, you see a little like kind of orange, pinkish, yellow sort of window, and that is Lo-Fi Girl. So they're in the same universe, kind of fun. And if I'm honest too, this feels correct to me. This feels right because I actually just picked up the DLC for Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. I'm kind of hyped for it, and so I'm sort of getting into the cyberpunky kind of mood. So what better way to do it than some synthwave? Today I'm going to talk about some news. There's quite a bit happening in the world of F1, as I'm sure all of you know. And the first thing that I will talk about is actually really it's the one that everybody's been talking about, and that is that the FIA has approved the USA-based Andretti team, Andretti Formula Racing LLC. Now, on the outset, I want everybody to know, and this is from what I understand, there are several processes that you go through when you're going to become an F1 team. First, you need to be enough support, enough sort of interest and excitement to try and justify it, which Andretti was able to bring GM through their Cadillac branch sort of into the fray, if you will. And I will admit that I was not expecting to see Cadillac. However, they have sort of kind of started to move themselves, kind of position themselves in such a way to where they are kind of like a sort of a performance brand now. I do believe it began with The Matrix Reloaded. I don't really think anybody thought of Cadillac being like a performance brand until that movie came out and they had that big chase scene on the highway with a Cadillac CTS, and then it was in like a Need for Speed game, and like it just started spitballing. So I think they kind of proved to themselves that they could do it, But anyway, Cadillac coming in with Andretti, it's really interesting. And basically after you get through the hype and the sort of presentation, getting kind of attention for it. The next thing is you go through a process that the FIA puts forward where they basically test. They have very specific criteria where they have to know: are you organized enough? Do you have enough funding? Do you have enough logistic capability? Do you also have enough human resources? And also, are you kind of committed to sort of the values of the sport, or like kind of what they're trying to achieve? And apparently, Andretti, at least from what I can tell and what I'm reading, they've kind of passed through all of that with flying colors, which I'm not surprised, because Andretti is in quite a few different Formula series. They have Formula E cars, which is already an FIA-sanctioned race, and then they do IndyCar, they do Indy Lights and things of that nature. So I definitely knew that they were going to have the capability. And so now the process is that they basically have to go in front of a peer review, in a sense, where it's like representatives from all the other teams and the bosses of F1 and the owners of the Liberty Media. And the thing that's kind of weird about that, I will admit, is that it's clearly the other teams do not want Andretti in, really, because they just do not want to shrink the pool of funding, which honestly I think is kind of crap. There's my hot fajita takes. You're competing for money, yes. And you don't necessarily want that money to shrink, but guess what? That money has been shrinking for years. Like, not that it's the sports money has been, like, revenue has been shrinking, but like with cost saving measures and, budget reductions and things of that nature to try and curb, performance, with the higher teams, like, it's just what's happening. And I think at this point, I'm really excited for Andretti. I really want them to be into F1. I think it's the perfect time for them to join in. I honestly think that it would be kind of a breath of fresh air, kind of a refresh of F1, because, like, as much as Haas is a USA team, they never really felt like it to me. They never really felt like the USA team that everyone was expecting. And I think so much of that was just because of their European, sponsorship ties, and like you had Rich Energy, which is like this weirdo English guy. Then you had Uralkali right after that, which was a Russian, fertilizer oligarch dude. So like they never really felt like an American team to me. They just felt like a team that happens to have an American flag on it. Andretti is different. Andretti Cadillac, I mean, I don't know, unless they paint the car to look like a apple pie and have an eagle on it, I'm not sure how much more kind of USA American you can get. And this car is probably going to be red, white, and blue unless they have some other, Oscar Mayer Wiener, sponsorship or something, which, hey, I mean, that'd be kind of cool. I'd be into it. But yeah, so basically they pretty much set themselves up for success in this sense. The only thing we have to do is just get through the other teams. And, I think that they're being kind of, I think from a fan's perspective, from a sports marketing perspective, I think it's a really smart move, and I'm really excited for them to show up, because I think that their IndyCar outfit is really successful. They're also great with their social media. And Andretti is just such a classic F1 name. To hear Andretti back on the track again, like, that's such a cool thing. I mean, Mario Andretti is one of the most, one of the more famous American figures in F1, and I mean, rightfully so. And just kind of bringing that name back in that organization, I think it would be a lot of success. I think the only thing that's really going to stop it is that teams being like, well, now we have to split the money 11 ways instead of 10. It's just like, who cares? Like, you're probably not gonna get it anyway. So I also think that it's kind of setting up that drama that if Andretti comes in and they just immediately start winning races and like pull a Braun and just like win the whole thing, that would be amazing. And it would be, I think, the most incredible season of F1 in years. I would be like, since maybe 2012, I think it would be probably the most incredible season. I know a lot of people are saying this is the most incredible season we've seen, but it's not really. I mean, dominance does not necessarily mean it's the most incredible thing. 2012 was really interesting because they had these really ugly duckbill swoop like downstep noses because the regulations had changed, and so a lot of the cars are really hideous. But you also had like 8 different winners from different, like, all like different teams, like from for the first like 10 races or something. It was incredible. Like, who knew that these guys were gonna win these races? Like, it was amazing. It was really, really wonderful to see. But yeah, I'm hoping that Andretti comes in, shows these European teams the what for. Hey, it'd be cool to see the drivers rolling in some Cadillacs too. It would be fun to see them as their, because like that's like one of the perks of being a driver for a team is suddenly, oh, like, here's our engine supplier has these cars. Like that would be really, really cool. You'll probably see some Blackwing Cadillac show up, but that would be pretty sweet. Now, real question is, who's their driver is going to be? And I've thought about this. I've thought about this a little bit. I think that there's a couple of ways they could play this. They could be safe with it. They could be smart, or they could take a bold choice. And what I understand about Andretti, and actually one of the things I do enjoy about Andretti, is that they do deliberately try to take bolder decisions with the drivers they choose and who they think they can win for them. They have Jamie Chadwick driving in the Indy Next, basically Indy Lights series. They could easily pull her in. She's technically a Williams driver, but she's driving for them. I wouldn't be surprised if she took advantage of that seat if she got a chance. It'd be cool if Williams pulled her in, but I don't think they're going to do that. They also have Miles Rowe, who was the first black American driver to win an open wheel racing series, which is really awesome as well. They definitely could bring him in as like a test driver, or as another driver. But what I will say that I think what a smart decision for Andretti to do is to, I would honestly approach Roman Grosjean, because here's the thing. His entry into IndyCar, it was well received by the fans, but his career's kind of faltered a bit. I mean, he had a lot of accidents, a lot of issues with that. But he has a lot of experience in Formula One. Like, he knows the people, he knows the situation. It's comfortable. He would be comfortable in that position again because he's familiar with it. And I think that as a driver, I think that with Andretti, I feel like he would be a good way to get the team up to speed with a lot of things, help with a lot of the car setup, help with a lot of logistics and things of that nature, just improve on top of what they've already got going on. That would be a smart decision. And I think if they paired him with maybe a more bold choice, because I don't think Marcus Ericsson's going to do it, because he's driving for Andretti now in IndyCar next year, and they could do both of those guys, but I don't think they will. I think Marcus is pretty content being in IndyCar. I don't know if he'd want to make an F1 jump back, but who knows? It could be either of those guys. I do hope it would be cool to see Roman back in an F1 car, especially if he was sticking with Andretti. It would say a lot for Andretti. But moving on, if we're going to talk about drivers, I do want to talk about a few drivers here. First of all, I want to talk about Ricciardo. So Danny, apparently his delay return to F1 is not going to be until the United States Grand Prix. I guess the thought was that he was going to be back in the race in Qatar, but apparently they've decided against it. I guess his arm is still... I'm sure it's healed. I think it's just one of those things where it's just sort of getting it back up to strength and making sure that the pain is completely eliminated. So he's still recovering. Apparently had been sitting in the simulator, and I guess the simulator has a lot of force feedback, so they can sort of simulate sort of the strength of what he would need as far as trying to get his arms back up to snuff and whatnot. So yeah, I hopefully he's going to make his full recovery when he comes in. And the knock-on effect of this is that Liam Lawson is going to continue to get his chance to kind of show what he could do in an F1 car, and he has been doing quite a bit. Honestly, I think he's been doing better than Nick DeVries really ever did, which is saying a lot. I did see that Nick DeVries is going to be back in Formula E, which, hey, good for him. But then I'm also confused. I thought he got into Harvard. If this is like a marketing ploy, that's a bit of a it's a bit intense to just like, hey, I got into Harvard, goodbye idiots, I'm going to FE. Like, what does this even mean? But here's I'm reading this article on motorsport.com about this, and this is a speculation I keep seeing people bring up. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know exactly, but apparently people are still speculating that Sergio Perez is just going to get swapped out for Danny next year, and Lawson is just going to take on the AlphaTauri seat after Danny leaves. I got a lot of feelings about this. Sergio Perez really proved his mettle when he was with Racing Point, when they were going to dump him, and he was still just being he was putting in some really good performances and doing the best he could. And part of me, it's tough. It's like when you're being directly compared to Max Verstappen, I would say if Sergio was in any other team, if he was like alongside Alonso and Aston Martin, he was doing the performances he did, at least when he has on his good races, I think everybody would be freaking out and be like, yeah, Sergio is so great. But I think it's because he's literally up next to this like alien of a driver. I think that the level that Max is performing and the kind of support that he has from his team, I think all sort of plays into this sort of weird thing that Sergio has to negotiate. I think he's doing the best he can. And I don't think he deserves to leave necessarily. I think he should still have a seat. And this is why it's still frustrating to me that like Lance Stroll is still around. because I really don't think he deserves that seat. I don't think he should be there. I think he should have checked out of F1 a while ago and just tried something else. You know, he can always come back. But, well, anyway, speaking of Max Verstappen, let's talk about him for a minute. I was reading this article that basically he did some podcasting, had some interviews, and he was talking about his relationship with his father in his early racing career. And, you know, there's a lot of ways that this parallels with some people that I know in my life who have been in similar situations where their parental figure really wanted them to get into a particular discipline of sport of some kind, and they just weren't really into it, and they just weren't sure if it's what they wanted. But they still were pushed through it. And, you know, Max said this specifically, and I quote, "When I was 4 years old, I didn't know that I wanted to be an F1 driver. It was just enjoying driving and having fun. At one point, I think you find your passion, and then it's about your parents, of course, supporting you, but not pushing you to do it because otherwise it will catch up to you." So, you know, Max may not have been anticipating that this was it. I mean, I think that Max enjoys racing. Clearly he does, because he does it all the time, even in his off time. But I don't know if he necessarily cares as much about... He really doesn't care about Formula One as much as his dad does. You know, he even said that, like, his dad gets more psyched before a race than he even does. I just think that Max is so naturally talented, and I think that he just happens to be in one of Adrian Newey's best cars ever made. Which, by the way, I will say, if you have a chance to, please listen to the Beyond the Grid podcast with Adrian Newey that they just did, the interview. It is fascinating. And that guy seems like such a nice man and an incredibly interesting person. And just the fact that he still sketches things out on a pad with pen and paper, it's mind-blowing to me. He also said that basically said that his favorite era of F1 was the 70s, where everybody was just doing whatever the hell they wanted to do. And I'm like, yep, that tracks. That seems pretty sweet. I wish that the sport would sort of bring in a little bit more of that sort of attitude again. They would sort of bring in that, you know, the sort of relax the rules a little bit. You know, maybe not completely, but, you know, I think that I think we should embrace the differences and the change. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, anyway, I have a little bit of sympathy for Max in that sense. I like to think that if at some point, I think he's just going to get kind of bored doing it. And he's probably going to want to try something different. And I mean, you know what? If you get to a point where you got 3 world championships, you mean, you don't have to be a Lewis. You don't have to go for 7 or 8. You know what I mean? You can do what you want to do. Lewis is so passionate about F1. He always has been. That I can't really see him in any other race series. I'd be curious and I would support him. But I think that when he finally decides he's going to retire, I think he's just going to do something else. I think he's going to just sponsor teams, maybe be a consultant. I don't think he's going to do any other racing series, but, you know, who knows? I did hear that apparently Sebastian Vettel and Jenson Button and Robert Kubica are possibly going to be on an endurance team together for the WEC. That's pretty cool. I'm super stoked for that. I want to see Sebastian racing again. That would be really rad. So move on to the third driver, and this is somebody I actually really want to talk to. I was really excited about this. This flew under my radar. I guess I'm just not paying attention as much, but Jessica Hawkins, who is, I believe, an English driver. She raced in the W Series, and she did she's a brand ambassador for Aston Martin, and she did a test in it's a 2021 Aston Martin, and I'm really excited about that. She talks about she did an interview with Sky Sports, and she said a lot of really sort of great, inspiring things, and she's also very grounded. You know, she talks about how they asked her, you know, she because she's a woman that's driving in an open wheel series, of course everybody asks her, why aren't there more women in F1? And I'm sure that's a very tiring hiring question for a lot of women in this position. But she did give a good answer. She said, I often get asked why there are no women in F1, and there are probably a variety of reasons, but one of them main reasons is a numbers game. And I think that is, one of the most, if not the most valid reason to why. It's just that there are just disproportionately way more boys that are trying to get into motorsport than there are women trying to get into, motorsport, little girls. And so I think that what she's doing, and what every woman that's in a racing position is, like the whole marketing with the F1 Academy, like, so a huge chunk of that is the visual representation, like the showing, like, hey, you can do this. And hopefully that will just shake more little kids loose, so more young women loose to be able to, like, actually get out there and race and, like, be inspired to do it. And I really do hope that's the case, because I would rather see these numbers change. I want to see more. I think there's so much potential for different racers and different talent levels, and I think it's incredible. It's something we need to work towards. She also says, and this is really interesting, she's worked with pretty much everybody that Aston Martin's been involved with. She's worked with Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso, Felipe Drugovich, and Stoffel Vandoorne. And she says she's gotten a lot of input from them. They've really kind of, sort of been some inspiration and gotten kind of brought her up to speed in a lot of ways. She also talks about how Fernando has been racing for such a long time, and then she's like, she says, I feel like when you have driven any car for that amount of time, you have so much space for other things. What she means by that is something that we've talked about with Fernando before, where it's just like so much of his driving is so intuitive that he can just use his mental brain space to do other things and, like, drive other people around the track, So she says it's the things that they think about when they're on track, and being clever, thinking outside the box, their brain capacity is huge. And she also says this thing that I say all the time, and now she's like one of my favorite female drivers just because she said this. Hawkins compares an F1 car to a spaceship after becoming the first woman in 5 years to test an F1 car. And I'm like, yep, it is literally a spaceship. It's a spaceship that drives on the ground. It's pretty amazing. I really, really hope to see. She's apparently supposed to be part of Aston's team for the F1 Academy series coming in, because they're going to be being sponsored by actual F1 teams. So I'm really excited to see. I hope she gets to drive for them. I honestly want to see her in an Aston Martin. Put Kickstroll, get her in there. Let's do this. So moving on, the last thing I want to talk to, and this one I'm not sure how I feel about this, only because I don't know all the details, and from what I'm reading, nothing's really giving me the answers. But apparently, Apple is potentially trying to bid for F1's global television rights. Now, I have an iPhone. I have an Apple computer that I'm recording on right now. I do like Apple products. I'm not a person that needs to have a crazy amount of control over my electronics. I'm just the kind of person that just goes with it, just whatever it does. I like that it works, and that I've never had any problems with viruses or anything like that, knock on wood. However, I don't like when one giant rich company just buys exclusive rights to something. It's a little frustrating because I feel like it reduces the accessibility, and that's, I think, a huge problem that we were having with F1. We still kind of have with F1. I think that the F1 TV app is really it's a killer deal. I think it's 100% worth the money that you pay, especially if you're an F1 fan. However, there's some people that's just not how they do it. That's not how they want to get their, viewing experience. And I don't like that there's only one company that's trying to just monopolize the whole thing. They're not going to, like, broadcast elsewhere because they're trying to get exclusive rights. It says a deal with F1 potentially costing up to $2 billion a year envisages a sliding scale of exclusivity for Apple, beginning at 25% and ambitiously scaling to 100% within 5 years, aligning with the expiration of current broadcasting contracts. So they basically, when the contracts for them subsides, they want to just take over. I don't know how I feel about that. So long as the F1 app is still left intact, and so long as it's still available, like, I just, if you have to buy an Apple TV subscription in order to watch F1, that's just going to be kind of a bummer. Because some people don't like Apple, some people don't want Apple, so it's just like it creates this sort of forces your hand, and I hate that. I really hate that. And honestly, and I'm just gonna say this, I'm an American, okay, and I live in a capitalist system, and you know, a democratic system. Well, you know, for now. And here's the thing about capitalism. I think that the true spirit of capitalism should be in a diverse market, and you should have options, and it should be spread out. But the fact that you have one company trying to just buy up everything like that, I thought we outruled monopolies. I thought we made that illegal. Apparently not. There's ways they get around it, apparently. So anyway, who knows? Well, yeah, so that's pretty much the news I've got today. That's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Idris is going to be back, I believe, next week. I don't know if he'll be back in time for the episode, but we'll see if I can scrounge up another special guest to talk with me, and we'll pick some subject or something. I hope you guys enjoy me talking, even if it's just me chatting. If you don't, let me know. If you do, please let me know. It would absolutely make my day. I just like to know that people are listening. I like to know that my opinion is valued. And you know, I'm excited to know that what we're doing, and that is Idris and I are doing as a podcast, is worth it. Last week, if you haven't listened to the episode with Tiernan, I highly recommend that you do so. She's a super fun person to have, and I really, really appreciated how she described Idris and I, and she really didn't have to. And believe me, I didn't give her a script. I didn't force her to. And I really appreciate the fact that there are people out there that really do care about what we have to say, because ultimately we are just two fans. We're just two friends talking about this thing that we really enjoy, and we hope that people get enjoyment out of it. I want to make sure that we are as accessible as possible to anybody. And so therefore, you know, we continue to do this because we want to. I am up from underneath a few big obligations. And so in this month, I'm going to be focusing on a few things. Mainly, I'm going to come up with a couple, maybe one or two sticker design ideas. I have a couple really exciting ones I want to try. I also really want to try and push towards trying to get some t-shirts out there, get some merch out there. We owe our friend Shanali a t-shirt because she guessed our Belle Biv DeVoe question. So Shanali, if you're listening, we're going to get you a shirt. Trust me, we'll get some stickers your way too. But yeah, I appreciate everybody listening, you know, to F1 or F off. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you want to hit us up, you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok, YouTube, X for now. You can email us at F1 or F off podcast@gmail.com. Please give us a 5-star review. Wherever you listen to your podcast, it really helps us out. Be sure to share it with your friends. Be sure to share it with your family. I don't know, you know, just the person that gets mad at the drive-thru because they asked for a large and they got a medium, and they scream and shout and they bang on the window and they say that they're gonna, like, you know, attack the workers. Just get them to calm down. Just start blasting our podcast out the window while you're waiting for them to freak out, and just see what happens. And if you do that and it does happen, like, I want to see their reaction. I want to know what they're gonna say. Yeah. Anyway. Thank you to Synthwave Boy for providing some background ambience, and I will see you. You'll hear from us the next weekend, and we'll have a big old party when Idris comes back. Miss my buddy, but I'm glad he's having a good time. So, all right, thanks everybody. Take care. Bye.